I guess you might not be as concerned as they are with this, but as I was listening to these, some of the coaches and people involved with the Mexican sides, I remember when you had to talk to us about all those 7 games outside of Nashville that you had to play a couple seasons ago, and how tiring and difficult that was. Is that, to say it aware, how much of an excuse that could be for one of those teams not performing as well? And also, have you felt at all that the fact that they're in preseason has got anything to do with the fact that the MLS is beating most of them?
Yeah, being away from home for that long is challenging. It's got to be tough for anyone. If you're talking about our period of time, we actually came back and we went off again. The teams that have progressed have stayed away from their families, they've been living out of hotels, hotel rooms, and it's incredibly difficult. And I think there will certainly be some things that, you know, the organisations, whether it's MLS or Liga MX, look at, you know, as we move forward and try and hopefully improve for the competition, because it's been incredibly exciting for everyone. Challenging for the Mexican teams, no doubt. The pre-season period for them, yes, for sure. I'm sure just 3 games into their season, they could certainly say we're not into a rhythm. But there's some good teams, some really good players. So, look, I think there's a little bit of a, you know, to and fro in here of, yes, it's been difficult for them, but you do have some really good players as well. And you know, there's some occasions where I think most of the teams that have been knocked out would say there's not been a lot in it, and in a lot of cases maybe on penalties. So it's been very fine lines, but I think most importantly of all, the competition has been an absolute hit from where I can sort of see it, as far as spectating and viewing, and the you know, the way the games have unfolded. I'm not sure anyone could have wished for much better, really. It's been great competition.
How much of a chip exchange, if there is any, in between all what happened before, during, and after the game against America and what might happen tomorrow is? I mean, is it a big switch of things in terms of preparation, the guys in the locker room, you as a coach? What's so different?
Between the 2 games? The quick turnaround's always tough. It'll be tough for Minnesota as well. 2 days in between the games, and then you're playing on the 3rd day. Most importantly for the players, it's recovery. You know, they're playing at a high level. The games are intense. It's, as we've just said, it's terrific competition. Very, very good teams playing, and not a lot to choose between them. So everyone's playing at their optimum. So the turnaround, getting the right group on the field, how many changes do you make? You know, when teams are doing well, you know, you want to get the balance right. Players are confident. There's some continuity, but, you know, I'm sure they'll be the same as us. There'll be a couple of players a little bit sorer than most, and so getting the right group out there to get the job done, and understanding your opponent in this short turnaround, which has been made somewhat easier because of our, if you like, connection with Minnesota. You know, Western Conference for us last year. Adrian's been in MLS for a long time, and there's a lot of football that I've seen of these teams, and they're always very, very difficult to play against. And I think they're probably in the most confident and positive form that we've seen in a little while. Does that relate to bringing in Pookie? I'm sure that was a big boost to the group. 100% getting Reynoso back into their team. What a talent he is. And now you start to see, you know, guys around that, you know, they're raising their game as well. So it'll be a challenge. It'll be a challenge for them as well. They know that, but it should be a pretty exciting evening again.
How much of it is has there been any conversation between most guys and you in terms of what worst case scenario you could be on playing the CONCACAF champions next season?
Is that worst case or best case?
Well, no, I'm talking about best case is
Yeah,
winning
yeah.
the championship.
Yeah.
Well, why not?
Absolutely. Not at this point. We've always been a group that have taken each challenge as it comes along. I think if you start looking too far ahead, you forget about the work that needs to be done. We know we've got a very tough game. We've just had 2 really tough games, and both teams will know that if they can get through this one and be in the competition for the final 4, then the scope really opens up then for what can be achieved. I think more than anything, the players have seen what the bonuses are like, and I think that's driving an awful lot of the excitement for them as much as anything. Nobody wants to go out there and not do well. I think everyone's, from what I can see, put out really strong teams. We've done exactly the same, and that's why the competition's been so good.
Gary, you mentioned playing against the Western Conference team well. Just with the switches you guys have had to make from conference to conference and the adaptability throughout the core of your roster, do you feel like that has given your team a bit of an advantage, just adapting to different styles of play against League MX sides, against teams you have maybe seen more of versus teams that have just kind of been in one conference? Has that helped you all through this process at all?
I'm not sure it's necessarily up against the Mexican teams that we played, the 2 of them, and they've been 2 good sides. Both of those teams are very, very capable. There's just a different outlook, a different mentality. There's a different history to these clubs. They're, for Club America, they've been enormously successful. So they carry that confidence, and they look like a group of players and an organisation that understand what success is, and that can only come from winning things. Toluca, likewise, a different style, very aggressive. Those games in particular, I do think the players learn an awful lot about their opponent, what they're seeing. We can only do so much in a scout. Never ever the same as running into the team live. The difference tomorrow night's going to be that we've run into Minnesota on numerous occasions, albeit, I think the last game against them was probably a year or maybe longer than that, 18 months ago. I've not looked at it, but it's certainly a year plus. So there'll be players in that group that obviously either weren't there or weren't playing. But for the most part, a lot of the trends stay the same, and they still are that very difficult team to play against, bottom line.
Gary, what was different about the way this team handled itself in transition defensively and recovery against America versus against Toluca, where obviously you guys were left exposed at times? What made this performance defensively markedly better than the first game against the Mexican side?
Probably a couple of things. The first one was, we won our first group game. We knew at that point that if we could get at least a draw, and then of course what happens in penalties, we could well win the group. So I think there was an aggressive mindset. So certainly I believe that. That was what I presented to the group. We started very positively, and I think that in itself gave everyone the sort of upwardly mobile feel about the game. We're going to go and score goals. We're going to put our mark on the game. And as the game unfolded, you could see that the team we were playing against were very, very capable. Not that we hadn't seen that in the build-up, but the difference with the America game was, it's a knockout game. I think there's just a little bit more caution and appreciation for, maybe respect for the talent that you're running into. Their style, I felt, was far more possession-oriented than maybe the Toluca group, who were very, very positive, very aggressive with the ball, in creating. Whereas this America group were all about dominating the game with the ball, and that presents some different problems and mindsets in itself. So some experiences, different teams, different thoughts, different stage of the competition in the end. There's fine lines between me sitting here and not sitting here. So
we'll go
with on Zoom with Biller.
Hey Gary, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but you're managing against another Englishman, an injured Heath. What have you made of his stint here in MLS? It's been a while that he's been in this league, and have you talked to him? Is there a connection there?
Yeah, really good relationship with Adrian. I remember Adrian and his career and what a fabulous player he was as well. So there's a lot of respect for what he's achieved as a player as well as a coach and a manager. I think I heard, if I'm not mistaken, on the commentary in their Toluca game that in the Western Conference he is the most consistent, and Minnesota are the most consistent playoff team in the Western Conference. Somebody might be able to correct me on that, but I thought I heard the commentary team say that, and it didn't surprise me. They consistently have really hard-working, durable teams, and I think the balance of his groups are spot on. He has a wonderful individual that I know there were some problems with earlier on in the season in Reynoso. What a fabulous talent he is. But some of the additions and some of the recruitment's been very good as well. The boy on the right-hand side, who I certainly won't try and pronounce his name, the South African boy, has been fantastic for him. Wonderful talent, great engine, real competitor, and a really good addition to MLS and of course to Minnesota. But I think the recruitment's been good. Adrian's an inspirational character. From what I can see, I've not obviously worked with him, but he's always very passionate on the sideline, and you can see the way his teams play. It's a nice combination, and they've always done well.
Biller, looks like you might have a follow-up question.
Yeah, just one more. We saw that in 2021 and even beforehand, even before MLS, that Nashville SC wasn't necessarily the best when it comes to penalty kicks. Obviously now you have 2 in a row within a week pretty much. Have you worked on anything specifically to improve the team as a whole, or is it just based on luck? What has changed?
I'm not sure we can base anything just on luck, Valer. There will be some fortune involved in any game, but I don't think we can solely base it on that. I do think it's part of the growth of the team. There's some challenges and some difficulties and some frustrations, not just the penalty kicks and the pain that everyone has to go through. I mean, nobody has forgotten the Philadelphia scenario where, we take a fabulous team to penalties at their own place and are unable to make an impact. And it leaves an indelible mark, I think, on players and staff alike. The guys have done a great job. Of course, we work at it, but you'll hear many coaches say nothing replaces being in the moment, under pressure, having to get the job done. Every player should be able to hit the back of the net from 12 yards away, and if you put them in a training session as we do, 99% of them are scoring goals. But if you put guys under pressure, it's those individuals that can hold their nerve and stick to what they know best in that situation. None more so than obviously Jack Mayer. I mean, what a difficult position he was put in, the lad. Of course, we were all delighted that it was pulled back and we got another opportunity. But Jack had to wait, whilst there was a pitch invasion and, beers thrown and security guards being carried off and all sorts of other things going on. And the lad's got to keep his cool. He's got to stay focused, and then he's got to slot that one home to give us a chance. So I think as the pressure mounts and we've got through a couple of these shootouts, I'm not going to say that it's a foregone conclusion now by any stretch of the imagination, but I think the guys will be buoyed and confident by what they've achieved so far. And this competition in general has led a lot of teams to that situation. So maybe in some ways it was an hurdle we needed to try and jump, and the competition's presented that for us.
Okay, and we'll go with the last question on Zoom with John Lupo. Go ahead.
Gary, in the formation that Minnesota plays with their 4-2-3-1, they do leave space in the midfield sometimes. And now having Sam playing maybe more centrally as a striker, do you feel like that there are some spaces maybe that you can expose and get some good chances in there, especially for him?
I actually look at their group and some of the footage I've seen from most recent games. I think they do a fabulous job of being a very tight unit and restricting space in that middle third of the field. They don't press overly high. They don't drop right off and enable their opposing or opponents to build pressure too easily. I think they put themselves in a really good position, and they've got guys that read the game well and get pressure on quickly, changes of pace and intensity. Listen, we've got a game plan. There'll be one or two slight, subtle shifts from maybe what we've seen in the last couple of games. But, we've not got enough time to be changing everything that goes on and tearing the page up and saying, look, this is what we need to do to get this job done. The guys are in a good place. We're very confident. We're at home. We've had terrific support. I've said that all along. I hope we can say exactly the same for Friday's game. And we're playing against a tough team, and I don't think there'll be a lot in it. Can Sam be the winner again? I truly hope so.